contains within it the seed of its own destruction. The moment that you take that kind of anti-human negative stance, you're just waving a red flag to nature, go come and get me, which is exactly what's happening now. It's called the age of revealing and the age of awakening.
Somebody mentioned it earlier, everything in our lives get driven by fear. The fear of scarcity, fear of death, fear of cancer, fear of authority, fear of your neighbor, fear of dogs, fear of cats, fear of disease. I mean, everything in our lives is completely and utterly driven by fear, and that is not by accident, that's by design. And once we realize where the problems are, once we realize that governments are not our friends, that governments are actually draconian institutions there to control humanity and turn us into submissive working ants that just march to the beat of their drum, of their draconian control, it's very simple to figure out what to do about it.
And I mean, I went from doctor to doctor to doctor, and not one of them would give me a prescription. And they just kept telling me it was bad for the lungs, and it was still under study. You know, man's oldest known and safest medication, you know, a plant we've been using in medicine for 5,000 years is still under study. Seems to me that that's a mighty slow study.
Whenever you drive into town, any sort of town, any sort of incorporated town anywhere, you're going to see a Freemason symbol and it's going to say free and accepted Masons. Most towns, I mean, especially like incorporated towns, have a Freemasonic temple, have a Freemasonic hall there. And so what are these guys doing? What ultimately doing? Well, what they're doing, or once again, in the original inception, was hiding this occult knowledge and trying to pass this knowledge on, and it's only been, once again, overtaken by sinister people.
The most interesting thing, though, was the flight engineer that night. He was able to get up and move around. He cupped his hands up to the windscreen and looked at this UFO, and he said, you know what? I realized the lighting wasn't external. I was looking into the UFO.
And I'm looking for some organization that I want to give some money to support cancer research. Where am I going to find one that won't be supporting research in chemotherapy and radiation? They're not out there. Or, well, we have a little one, but nobody knows about it. You see, all the big organizations like the American Cancer Society and things like that, they funnel millions and millions of dollars from little people like us, and it goes into research for drugs. And that money goes to the pharmaceutical industry as they push those drugs into the hospitals, and they're pumping them into the veins of the patients and killing them.
Even the corporations have come outright and said that their agenda is to own all seeds. And when they can own all the seeds in the world, they can control the food supply. And also by selling these GMOs, they're making profit by the pesticides that have to be bought with the GMOs. So that's kind of their agenda. They want to own all seeds globally, and then they can control our food supply. And
in that, you will notice that the people around you, your family, your loved ones, your lovers, your children, everybody around you will start to benefit just from seeing the fact that you're facing the world with grace, not with a grimace. And I find that to be more powerful than any book you can read on what kind of civil action or protest or civil disobedience or peaceful disobedience we could be involved in.
Basically,
all of that stems.
There's Phoenician relics here going back thousands of years. The Micmac glyphs are very similar to Egyptian hieroglyphs, and there's a reason for that. We call it diffusionism.
And look with different eyes and understand the depth of science, creativity, a deep understanding of who we are as humans and why we're here, then we can start to see what the Egyptians were leaving us as clues. And so the spiritual, metaphysical, and the spirit science oriented in Egypt is actually a healthier way to be. And so as we can drop these aspects that are limiting, these patriarchal ways of being and thinking, we can look beyond into a magical place where the Egyptians were there for the people, where they were holding consciousness as the highest value. Truth was essential, and we've departed from all of that.
Now,
in our
if knowledge is power, then history is written by the victors. So if we're to look back in time, I'd like to write a book on the history of the losers, because if I were to compare the text from both books, and somewhere in between there will be the truth.
Mainstream government, military don't want to admit that that kind of interaction has gone on. I mean, that's just a personal opinion. I think it's entirely feasible that there has been a level of interaction and probably a level of agreement on how this subject is kept down. And it may well be that the various ET races don't want to come out the closet, because then they're going to get a lot of people saying, we don't want you doing animal mutilation.
Yeah, have you seen the recent videos about Michelle Obama being a man named Michael? And what is your opinion on that?
Oh boy! See, you're just trying to get me in trouble, aren't you?
I already did.
I don't really have a firm opinion on that. When I first heard the claim that Michelle Obama is actually a man who's had a sex change operation or whatever, I pretty much scoffed at that. Nah, come on. But I'll tell you what, after you really study it and you look at some of the pictures and you understand that they can tailor-make clothing that can kind of hide the broad shoulders and the other aspects. And then I think the thing that really got me wondering is when I found out that the two daughters, there's no paperwork on them, okay? They apparently are adopted. And of course, then that leads back into the whole background and history of Obama himself and his family. And as you go back there, it just gets more and more murky.
For the top of the Sun Pyramid in Bosnia, we have recorded and measured the energy beams, electromagnetic and ultrasound in nature, and as it moves away from the pyramid, it's getting stronger and stronger, meaning that it can go through the, ionosphere and touch any point in our solar system and probably in our galaxy. So if you can reach any other planet, you'll be able to establish the energy bridge, and through this bridge we can move the frequencies and information.
What's being done now with the proposed European Treaty and the Trans-Pacific Partnership are both huge jumps into taking power away from the people and giving it to transnational corporations and their bosses, the banking cartel and the cabal. So I say, so if the government signs that treaty with the EU with its present financial provisions in it, that is high treason. And I really believe it.
Audit the Fed. It's one of the funniest things images that crosses my mind always, because so here you got this completely green accountant walking into the Fed.
Is it an impossibility?
It is an impossibility, but just to paint a picture for those people that still don't understand that the banks create money out of thin air. Okay, this is what it is basically. So this is the accountant that walks into the Fed and says, okay, well on the one side you've got 500 trillion or 500 gazillion dollars, and on the other side you got a pile of white blank sheets of paper, and then in the middle is this machine that's called the magical machine, and this accountant doesn't quite understand how the Fed has access to this insatiable amount of money, and it's all in this magical machine that they seem to have the exclusive rights to. I'm just painting this really basically. So the answer is when he asks the guy that runs the Fed, this is a cartoon-like explanation of what's going on here. So please explain to me how the accountant says how this works. And the guy at the Fed says, well, it's very simple. We've got a pile of white paper here, and we get this at Staples, and it costs us $10 for this pile. And then we feed it into this machine here, and then on the other side, it's $10 trillion. I'm not quite sure what happens, but this is how it works.
Yeah. It is blackberry right here. Look, you're right. Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
Beautiful.
Fuck. Sorry, I was trying to stop, but That's okay, buddy.
Yeah, just watch your speed there. Michael Schumacher.
Just don't do it again. Oh, I'm going under the limit.
I want to offer some more tobacco.
What did I say?
Yeah,
I know.
You're gonna
see an animal, man. Look, you're typing into your psychic abilities.
I know, man.
Your bear ability.
And he, in a way, I suppose you could say he was Israelite, because eventually they took over the whole region, and he became the king of Judea as well. But he was a pharaoh of Egypt, of course. He was Pharaoh Pasiba Kahayanet. And that was the united monarchy of King David. Again, we're going back into this Egyptian story. And the whole of my 10 books follow this line all the way through. So it becomes a common refrain all the way through the 10 books I've written on this subject, that all of the Torah story, and in fact all of the New Testament story, involves an Egyptian monarchy.
So you can see everything in existence, everything, every speech that was ever uttered, every effect that was ever produced by electric light, every thought that has ever emanated from our minds does this. It proceeds from I am, from being, and then it goes along the ecliptic and it does 12 things. I have, I think, I feel, I will, I analyze, I balance, I desire, I see, I use, I know, I believe. Belief is to start the cycle all over again at the I am.
We don't have to go down to some university and sign up and pay for some course. We don't have to just read one book and think all the answers in life are contained in one book. We don't have to follow some guru, some teacher, some leader, whatever, or some sensei, even in martial arts. We can become those things ourselves. And if I had a message to share and to even continue growing on in my own life, it was that. It was start there, and then if I could learn the truth about myself, I could see the lie around me, and I could know where the pitfalls are and how I could go. And I'm really just trying to pass that on.
So if you're not even turned on by the humanity of the world, think about the suffering of your own lineage. If that doesn't motivate you, that it should motivate you enough. Ultimately, I'd like it to be a greater feeling of fighting for humanity that keeps a person motivated, and that's it. All other things are incinerated. All other concerns are incinerated by that flame. Then on another note, but it's connected to what I've just said, is that there is unseen forces that will come to help. This is not just a mundane, socially, prescribed sort of, tussle that we're involved in. This has spiritual elements connected to it as well, because you're going to matriculate as a human being when you take on this kind of fight. This is really, epic. And so you're going to be tested, and it's not just going to be waving placards and going around leafleting people and trying to wake up your mates at the pub. This is a thing that has so much more to do with your own inner evolution as well. So to decide not to do it is ludicrous, because you're less of a person. So I would say to the new people, it's part of your spiritual development. So when the time gets dark and you think, nobody's into this, can't get anybody.
When we're working together and collaborating on these things, we need to also bring in that, empower each other, support each other, realize you're not alone. There are millions of people around the world that want freedom and that are working towards this. And like you were speaking about, we got to get rid of the infighting, get rid of the finger pointing, and start realizing that, when you're pointing fingers at others, there's 3 fingers pointing right back at you. I don't think that's an accident in nature. It's always to remind you that the solution starts within, and then it will spread. So I just wanted to share that, and that's really the idea behind why we're doing this tour. And I think that people around Canada are ready to wake up. They're ready for these solutions. And so I'm very honored to be a part of this, and I'm so glad that you guys are having us on the show here.
This is Richard. I just want to jump in, and I think we're living in the most incredible period of history that we can imagine, and an exciting one. When you think of the opportunities that lie ahead of us, we've been in the internet age for not even a full generation, just about, and look at the global communication that we are now able to have that was not imaginable 20 years ago, and even 10 years ago was hard to envision. That's one symptom of how this world is changing. Another symptom is in the fight by ordinary people who always want to be free, in the form of groups like WikiLeaks and other types of groups that are fighting the entrenched system by pulling classified information out that the people need to know about. Whether they're doing it officially legally or not is irrelevant. People are doing it because they know it's the right thing to do. This is how, for example, the world learned about the secretive Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement that the United States is hammering out with the Pacific nations right now to take away. They're talking about protecting intellectual property rights. What they're really trying to do is prevent sharing of information freely across national borders. That's what it's all about. It's all about giving this over to the top 100 corporations and having them control everything. And so organizations like WikiLeaks are here. 10 years ago, there was no WikiLeaks because we didn't have a global infrastructure to accommodate WikiLeaks. We now have that infrastructure, and guess what? Poof, they're here. They've appeared. And this is only the beginning. We're now in the beginning of an era of new technologies that are going to allow even greater changes. I don't think it will be possible for those very few dragon people, whatever they are at the top of the human food chain, to prevent all of this from happening. We're moving into an era of 3D printing, which will cause a revolution and I believe a decentralization of a lot of manufacturing and give power back to people. We're talking about being on the cusp of true energy breakthroughs. And we're seeing large movements of people. Michael is one key figure in this, which is an attack on central banking. In the United States, we had a number of movements, even in Congress, to audit the Federal Reserve, and they didn't get where they wanted to go. That's right. But the conversation is there. The conversation is there. And I don't think that conversation is going to be dead. So we're seeing it. We're only at the beginning stages. This is 2014. We've got a road ahead of us, and it'll be filled with a lot of struggle. But I wonder 10 years from now where we're going to be with all of this. And I think in a very, very different place, and very possibly a much better place.